I'll go ahead and jump into this. We'll be talking today a bit about video game design and why it's important to have game design curriculum in education, and also how game design is shaping multiple industries outside of the software entertainment industry. First thing I'll go ahead and hop into are just some facts about the game industry. These statistics I'm showing right here are from the ESRB, which is the Entertainment Software Rating Board. They're the ones who rate video games based on audience, like mature rating or teen rating for 13-year-olds or 17-year-olds, things of that nature. Video gaming now, these were done in 2010. 67% of U.S. households play video games. I ran the numbers based on the Census Bureau. As of 2010, there were roughly 114 million households in the U.S. 67% of that is about 76 million. So you got roughly 76 million households that own or play video games in some sort. So that's a very big market, which means that the industry has continued to grow, and it is continuing to grow into the future. And that also means that there's more and more jobs becoming available, which comes kind of to my next statistic here. The number of American jobs projected to be provided by the entertainment software industry by 2009 was estimated at over 250,000. Last number I heard, I think it was something around in 2013, they expect over 500,000 jobs to be provided by the entertainment software industry. So that's also significant. While there's plenty of industries that are losing jobs and losing a lot of revenue, the game industry has continued to grow, and they're projecting a growth this year too, I believe, for 2012. Now, of those jobs, the average salary for direct employees is $92,000, total net compensation of $2.2 billion. So that's pretty significant as well. If you have a 4-year degree or something in computer science, 3D modeling, anything you can think of in terms of computers can most likely find a job somewhere in the entertainment software industry. And games have become very expansive now, and as a result, you are having people in all sorts of disciplines, such as audio engineering and even filmmaking, like cinematography or writing. All these different areas are becoming part of the gaming industry now, because video games have turned into more of a narrative, almost feature film thing, except it's interactive. So there's a lot of possibilities in the industry. Next thing I want to kind of talk about is gamification. Gamification is the definition as provided by Wikipedia is the use of game design techniques, game thinking, and game mechanics to enhance non-game contexts. So basically, it's using things that you would normally apply into video game design, but putting it into other industries. And right here, I kind of got an example of that. This is from somebody's blog who uses Revit architecture, which is an Autodesk architectural design program that's widely used in the architecture industry now. And what they did was they brought in their model to Unity 3D, and they provided some scripts to allow you to interact with the model here. So I'm using WASD to move around and my mouse to look. If I walk up to this wall, I can press E and change the materials of this wall to kind of see how it would look in different situations. Now, why this is significant is because it may not look like much here because this is really rough, but if you're an actual firm and you take the time to really polish this up and make it look nice for a client, then you could technically have your client sit down with this and kind of go through their home and test different materials on their walls, or different window panes, or different kinds of doors and things of that nature, because this is all done within a video game engine, and it allows you to script and program it and behave the way you want it to. So there's a lot of power in that, and we're starting to see this a lot more in the architecture industry especially. And this actual, what you're seeing here is not Flash. This is an actual Unity web player that's embedded on a website. So that's another really beneficial thing, is the ability to just embed this onto a web page and send it to anybody, or let people see it if they want. So that's an example of gamification in architecture. Another thing I wanted to talk about was this article here on the Daily Mail. And some of you might have seen this. This was about a year ago, I think, about this kind of pharmaceutical, or I would say chemistry game that was made by a UW, University of Washington, computer science professor called Foldit. And what this game was is basically it allowed users to construct proteins in a virtual environment that are based on the physics of the real world. So it's used as a way for people to kind of crowdsource together and come up with efficient ways to create the most energy efficient molecules that you can. And it took 10 days for users to come up with a molecular structure of an enzyme from an AIDS-like virus that's been found in rhesus monkeys. The enzyme plays a key role in the spread of the virus. With the detailed molecular structure, scientists are able to better design a drug that stops the spread of the virus. This is basically what the game looked like. It's simply like a browser-based game where you can put together proteins and enzymes and with new configurations. The way it worked was when a user comes up with a more elegant structure that reflects a lower energy state for the molecule, their score would go up. The users who made as a result of this, the user who made the final decisive move said that the game isn't only an intellectual challenge, but it also provides a unique society of players driven by both individual and team rivalry with an overall purpose of improving the game and the results achieved. So that's kind of an example of how gamification works, and it also speaks to the psyche or kind of the psychology of gamification, the fact that it creates kind of competitiveness, but also collaboration at the same time to accomplish something. It can turn something that's otherwise inaccessible to somebody or may seem boring or redundant to somebody, it turns it into a game, and it encourages them to really get actively involved in that. And this was really significant is because a lot of schools are trying to focus heavily on STEM right now. And with the whole STEM curriculum, a lot of people think game design is just for entertainment software, but it's really not. You can apply it into scientific disciplines as well if you felt like it. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that real quick. Next thing I want to talk about is the study I found that took 2,000 participants between 18 and 44 years old and talked about gamification in advertising, which is kind of interesting, and I never really thought about that till I came across this study. But with the advertising, 58% of these people said it's important for brands to be fun and playful. And what that means is, playing an online game or receiving some kind of interesting email update. Here's the pie chart that showed basically everybody's preference. But out of the 2,000 people, 58% thought was useful to have some kind of fun and playful thing for a brand to advertise. And one example they used was the company Green Giant, who makes vegetable products. They did an advertising campaign where Farmville players could earn cash by purchasing Green Giant products. For those of you who don't know, Farmville is the social online game on Facebook that's gigantic, and tons of people play it. And you can get in-game cash to buy in-game items with. You pay like real-world money for the in-game cash. But the way this ad worked was you buy a Green Giant product and you would receive some kind of coupon code that you could redeem in Farmville to receive money. And the statistic they found here is that 70% of the people who were aware of the ad had a positive view of the advertising. And supposedly it worked really well for Green Giant. So that's just another area where gamification is hopping in, which is advertising as well. So gaming is no longer just this niche industry just run by a couple guys in their basement or whatever programming. It's no longer like that. It's become this very widely used phenomenon that's taking over multiple industries. So if you're into game design or you have a lot of background there, you're going to have more job opportunities than you might think. So that's kind of the point I wanted to make here. So with that said, I'll kind of hop into the tool that I will be talking about today, which is Unity 3D, which is a video game engine. Well, technically it's a software platform, but it runs on the Unity engine, which is a game design engine. First thing is, how is Unity being used in the current gaming marketplace? And it's primarily being used on cell phone applications, or cell phone games for the iPad or iPhone or an Android-capable device, but you can also make stuff for Windows, Linux, Mac, or whatever discipline you want, PS3 Network, Xbox Live Marketplace. Whatever it is, Unity's really at the forefront of that, especially for indie game developers because it's cheap. So it's really easy to hop in and learn it and really start making a lot of games. And this is just a list they have on their website of some of the games that they have. You probably Google that and find it if you're interested. And I already went over how it's being used in other disciplines, from architecture to pharmaceuticals or science and engineering. So I'll kind of just hop into a quick demonstration here, kind of show what the program looks like and what you could expect from it. So it pretty much looks like any of your normal 3D modeling softwares like Maya or Max, because it's got the viewport and it's got your inspector and some of these other objects here. Everything in your project is related to a location on your hard drive, so if you have any models or anything that you want to bring in, which I'll show a bit in a couple minutes here, it all shows up here in your project list, and you can kind of just drag and drop them into your scene wherever you want. Go ahead and delete that. Now this is just something I already had made up. This terrain that I have here, basically the level that you see, is something that I made within Unity. So I had a question before about whether or not Unity as a standalone application can create levels from the ground up, and yes it can, and it's actually pretty powerful. If you have stuff like Max and Maya, it's probably best to do it in there, but if you're on tight budget and you can only afford Unity, then yes, you will be able to make an entire level from the ground up, as well as characters, etc. So you're able to do most of what you can do in Maya and Max. In Unity, it's just not as comprehensive as a modeling program. So, and that's out of the way. One of the best parts about Unity is, to me, it's really easy to hop in and start to understand. It uses something called game objects that when you create them, it's just an empty spot in 3D space. So if you've used any 3D modeling program, you recognize the XYZ axis here. Now this is just an empty, it's nothing right now, but with this game object, you can add components to them to give them effects. So you could add a mesh filter and a mesh render to create some sort of look. I'm not going to do much with that, but you kind of get the idea. If you have scripts, you can apply scripts to this object as well, so it behaves in a certain way. You can also they have some built-in ones, like if I want to create a cube, I can do that on the spot, and it creates a cube that has collision on it, and you can scale it out however you want. You can move it, rotate it, etc. You can also add light sources, like a directional light, which is basically like a sun source, if you want to think of it that way. I believe they use this terminology in 3ds and Maya as well. You can also add you can add text, you can add physics, you can do cameras, you can add particle systems. There's a lot of functionality here. What I wanted to show was sort of just what I have going on here on my first-person controller, which is just a capsule right now. That's the basic graphic, but you could replace that with some sort of model you have later. But if I go ahead and play this, I've already applied some scripts to my characters here. I'm able to walk around, move using WASD. I apologize, it's kind of choppy. I'm running like 6 programs right now, so my computer's kind of slow. But if I left click, I fire a fireball out and I can hit my box, and it has physics applied to it, so it moves around appropriately with some force. And as I keep hitting it, it explodes. And I don't think you guys can hear it, but when my fireball hits something, it makes a sound. And while I'm at it, while you're in Unity, you can play test right on the spot like I am right now. And then I can just stop and, maybe I want to make some changes to something. I can go ahead and do that. I can click on my box and say I want to change the angular drag of my box here so it behaves a little differently in the physics. Or maybe I want to change my scripts, which brings me to my script section. Scripting in Unity is really simple. I was actually very surprised. I have some computer science background, but it's not something I put tons of years of time into learning. But Unity runs on C#, Boo, and JavaScript. I chose to use JavaScript for what I was doing. The JavaScript is actually what they call a Unity script because it's based on Unity's own API. And let me go ahead and just open up my projectile script here, and it's going to open up MonoDevelop, which is the Unity script editor. It might take a little while, as like I said, I'm running tons of programs here. for those of you wondering about C++, and C++ is kind of the standard for most software, Unity can run C++ from what I've heard. You have to do some customization to make it work. I haven't read into it too much, but I have browsed around on forums and people do say it's possible to do that. So if you're wanting to do C++ in Unity, that is very possible. This is mono develop. It's just like any normal script editor, and you don't have to use it. If you're used to using some other kind of programming editor, you can go ahead and do that and open up your scripts with it. You know, this is basically Unity script. This is the JavaScript I was using. And what's really cool about this is they have their API reference readily available on their website, and it's very comprehensive. So if you're learning to program or you're trying to learn your way around the JavaScript in Unity, it's really easy to get started because they have every function that's part of their APIs listed here, and you can find out what it does, you know, what all the parameters are, and it's very simple to hop in and just get used to it. I kind of wanted to show next how the interoperability works with other 3D modeling programs. So what I want to do is hop into, I have 3ds Max 2013 here. I just have a real basic building. This is just a normal tutorial when you're learning 3ds Max, but I want to show how I can just hop this into Unity. Really no questions asked. So I can select this and go up here and go export selected, and if I go into my Unity assets folder, I can just save this as like Max Building FBX file, which is a 3D file that's readable by Unity. And then if I hop back in my project, it's going to load that asset real quick, which hopefully isn't. There we go. It didn't take long. And now my Max Building's here, so I can just go ahead and just drag and drop that in, and there it is. I know it looks pretty crazy, but that is what it is, and maybe that's kind of big, so I could scale it down a bit. And now if I play my game, the building's right there. So, you know, all I had to do was, outside of creating the model, I basically just had to export that as an FBX and drop it into my project. I forgot to generate colliders on it, so my fireballs are flying through it, but I can change that real quick here. If I go on my Max Building, I can generate colliders, I can apply that. Hopefully that doesn't take long. Okay, so then I can drop this back in, and now when I play, I should be able to, my fireball should actually stop when it touches something on it. Yeah, so instead of flying through it, I have like a smoke effect that's flying through it, but that's just because I haven't programmed that right. But you kind of get the idea. You can just drop it in and it generate its own colliders, or you can make your own colliders for it if you want something more responsive. So colliders in video games are used for basically if something touches something, what happens. That's kind of the logic behind it. So they're very important, and Unity handles all of that kind of by itself. Next thing I was going to show is how Maya models can be brought in. It's basically the same thing. Here I just have a, again, this is just an art tutorial file, rig. It's a character with like a skeleton in it and everything like that. And I can go ahead and export this to my snow level Unity scene. My computer's running real slow, I apologize. And I can export this straight out as a Maya binary, and that's pretty cool because you don't have to worry about converting it to anything and potentially losing some kind of information. So now I've exported that. If I open up my Unity again, it's going to go ahead and load for me the asset. Shouldn't take long. And once it's in there, it's right here, I can just go ahead and drag and drop him in there too. Now, pretty much looks the same and it's not doing anything, but once you have a model like this in here, you could drop a script onto it if you wanted to, and you know, do whatever you're going to do to it and make it interact the way you want. Now, in terms of animations for, say, a character that you did in Maya, you'd want to bake those animations out in Maya before you bring them into Unity. That's kind of just a side note, so that those things are handled by Maya, and then when you bring it into Unity, you would be able to create scripts that reference the skeleton structure and things like that, and then you would be able to animate your characters. So, when a user presses W or forward on their keyboard, your character's right leg moves forward a little bit, things of that nature. So you're able to do that with models that you bring in from these programs. I talked earlier about architectural visualization and gamification, so I figured I would kind of hop into Revit here, which, as I was mentioning earlier, is an architectural design program. And this is just the getting started house that comes with the Revit projects, which I always found was a pretty interesting thing. So I'll just go ahead and take this here. It's already basically made up, and I can just take my view and export this as an FBX, just like I did in 3ds Max, and I can drop it in my assets folder. I'll just call it Revit building, and it's going to go ahead and export that out right into my Unity. Now, typically the best workflow with the latest Autodesk software is to actually bring those files into Max first and do your materials within Max and then export it into Unity. And that's because there's an issue with the latest Autodesk material libraries. It's not much of an issue. I mean, really, you're going to bring it into Max most of the time anyway to make it look nice, but if you just drop this building straight into your project here, and it's kind of scaled wrong, but I'll just zoom in on it, you see that's all gray. It doesn't have the materials applied, and that's just because Unity's not familiar with the Protein 2 materials of the latest Autodesk software. But if you were to bring this into Max first and then export it, you would get your materials. So it's kind of just an extra step, but that is what it is. And then with this, if I want, I could scale this up again, and I could generate colliders on it, and I could drop a first-person controller in there and move around the building like you saw in that web demonstration I had on that person's blog. So that's how you just bring something in from Revit. It's actually really simple. And I had somebody ask about bringing 2D objects in before. Unity 3D is a 3D engine, but it does have a 2D API that you can download to make 2D games. And I believe you would be able to drop in not a DWG file necessarily, but a FBX version of your DWG file to bring in like a 2D floor plan layout and use it as a level or something like that. So that's a possibility as well. The other thing I want to show is Inventor. On the manufacturing side of things, this is just a ArborPress item that came with some of the tutorial files as well. And I can just take this, same thing as the other software, and export this out. Sorry, I have to bring this one into Max first and then export it out. Which my computer's kind of laggy. I don't want to risk like getting overheated or anything here. I won't go into that, but if I take this and I import that into 3ds Max and then export it out like I did my building here, I would then be able to bring that item that we see here right into my Unity project, just like I did the architecture building here. So, if you're doing any interesting mechanical engineering feats, like making some kind of car engine or something, you could technically bring that in to Unity and apply scripts to it and whatever you might want to do to test it in a sort of gaming environment. And then the kind of last thing I just want to talk about here in Unity is the ability to build a executable real quickly. So I have my game, and I showed you can play test it, and you can kind of interact with objects around here and whatever. But maybe I want to send this game to somebody to have them try it out and say, hey, I want to see how this runs on your hardware versus my hardware. Well, you can go ahead and do a build and run, and that's going to bring up a menu. Well, I think I chose the wrong option. Yeah, sorry. You can go build settings. There we go. And you can choose what you want to export as. You got your scenes in here, which are basically your levels. And you could do the web player, which we saw on that architecture demo, something that you can embed on a website. You can go to PC and Mac standalone. If you purchase the licenses, you can do Android, or iOS or 360, PS3, Wii. So you got a lot of options here, especially if you get the licenses for some of these. And I'll just go ahead and do a PC Mac standalone, and I'll just do a build and run, and we'll basically see the same thing. Save it as an exe on my desktop. It's going to compile everything, and then it's going to bring up a menu asking me what I want to run it at. I'll just do 1080p. I'll go ahead and play, and it's going to bring up the same thing we just saw, which is my very primitive level here, and it's real laggy, but you kind of get the idea. Now, since this is an executable, I could throw this on like a thumb drive or a network share, or if it's small enough, I could send it to somebody in an email or something and have somebody else collaborate with it on me, or test it out and just make sure there's no bugs or anything like that. Say you're running a PC, your friend has a Mac, and you say, hey, I want to make sure this runs on the Mac as well. You can send it to them and have them try that out. And it's very simple and it's very quick, and you don't have to program anything. It basically works right up front. So I thought that was a really cool feature, especially since you can go into Android and iOS, and I'm sure you all have heard people are making a lot of money off those marketplaces. If you just got a really good, fun idea, just look at Angry Birds or any of those kind of games. They're really popular on the phones, the portable devices. So as a teacher, if you have students, it's really cool, because if they're really into game design and they make something really good and they put it on the marketplace, they could start making money actually for their hard work. So that's usually a really big incentive for people in the who are interested in game design, especially independent people, but also students who are in college or high school who are really interested. That's a really big incentive for them, because they see that they can just start making money real quick just off something they did by themselves. Next thing I want to talk about, kind of done showing the basics here of Unity. Of course, there's a lot more to the program. There's a lot to learn. With that being said, though, there are a lot of training resources available. First of all, Unity has documentation all over their website, and I was showing you earlier about their API for their programming. That's all very comprehensive through their website. They have user manuals, and they have tutorials. A couple of these tutorials for a 3D platformer game, a racing game, and an iPhone platformer game. So these all kind of give you a grip on different game development concepts, and they're all very in-depth. I've kind of gone through the 3D platform game one, and they go through a ton of concepts, and they teach you quite a bit. Outside of that, the internet is full of resources for Unity. Game design is a collaborative field. It thrives on collaboration. It's like filmmaking. You can't just do it with one or two people. You could, but if you're going for some real ambitious project, you're going to need a lot of people involved, or you're going to have a lot of questions along the way. And I found when I was learning the software, I could go to Google and just type in any question I had, and I would find tons of answers from hundreds of people. So that's what's great about game design. It's not like a free-for-all sort of thing. It's very collaborative, and everybody helps each other out. Outside of the first-party stuff Unity puts out, there's also tons of third-party stuff, and there's a website I used called 3D Buzz that was really good. But if you just go on YouTube and you type in Unity 3D tutorials, you're going to find thousands of videos. There's so many learning resources available for this program. It's pretty ridiculous. And Lance will be talking about later some of the another one of the training websites. Now, I had somebody ask me this question on the first time I did this presentation, and it was basically, what skill levels should the teacher and the students have to hop into something like this? And it's a kind of a interesting, that's a very good question, so I'll go ahead and address that. When you're dealing with game design and programming, especially, math is probably the number one thing you're going to need to be very up on. Specifically, you're going to want your students to probably have an understanding of geometry and at least algebra, if not higher. But if you're introducing this into like a high school curriculum, geometry and algebra I would definitely recommend as a prerequisite, probably like Algebra 2. As a teacher, you're going to want to be well versed in mathematics as well. If you have like calculus experience and even physics experience, that's also a plus. If you're kind of learning it along with the students, though, that's also a possibility. So, don't count yourself out just because you haven't taken Calculus 4 or something. But I always recommend math skills as the number one, and then just general computer skills. You want people to be familiar with Windows or Mac or whatever OS you're working in. You want people to be familiar with computers and how they work, at least to a point. Familiarization with your operating system is the number one thing. If you have an understanding of hardware and how hardware works, that's also a plus, because when you start programming, you're going to have to start thinking of how to program efficiently for your computer's hardware, so you don't create a game that just lags everybody's machine out. But those are kind of the prerequisites. I mean, it's mostly just math. Everything else is kind of secondary, but it's mostly a focus on mathematics. So I think with that being said, I'll just go ahead and hand this over to Lance here to talk about what he's going to talk about. And after he's done, we will do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, we're almost to that point. So I'll go ahead and give this over to Lance now. Got to find him on my list here. All right.
The conference is now in conversation mode. The conference is now in presentation mode.
Okay, this is Lance Zurich here. If someone could just shoot me a little message there to let me know that you can actually hear me. Frank, Christy, anyone like that. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, I'm seeing yes. All right, let's get into the meat of it. Okay, although most of you should know who we are, for those of you who may have found us off of a blog and not received an invite to this directly from one of the representatives, we are, of course, Studica. We're an educational company. We basically sell software to students, teachers, schools, what have you, and we've been doing it for about 27 years now. Basically, our focus pretty much from the beginning was always in the area of design. As much as we offer hundreds of different products, we've really always been focused on the area of design. And of late, we've also put a lot of focus on game development and STEM. And in all of these areas, basically Unity will apply for you. And let's just get moving along here. Okay, I'm just going to kind of summarize some of the points that Mark hit upon very briefly before getting into the pricing aspect. So first off, of course, Unity Pro education applications. It's, of course, perfect addition to any animation or design program. Anything that you're doing already, if you're already using programs like, 3ds Max or Maya or what have you, this will work perfectly with that. It's also ideal, of course, for teaching game development in a standalone class, something on its own. Some of the topics covered with Unity, of course, include design, development, 3D modeling, concept art, programming, audio, and storytelling. And keep in mind, as Mark mentioned, game design, very much like the motion picture industry, is a collaborative effort. It needs a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. So this is really a good way to teach students about teamwork as well, so that everybody can, you basically bring a lot of different skills to the table by using something like Unity. And for having, of course, a game design program. More reasons for using Unity Pro, because more than just a way to teach game design, this is a way to teach STEM, which is, of course, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And as, of course, everyone knows, this has been the hot topic for the last few years. Everybody's talking about STEM education and how do we steer students towards these types of fields. Basically, using something like Unity, you're giving them a reason because, as Mark mentioned, because they need to be proficient in areas like algebra, geometry, physics, calculus, trigonometry, because all of these things are going to have their place in doing game development. You're giving students an incentive to want to get involved in those areas, things that they may have shied away from before. So, once again, it's perfect for teaching STEM. It's perfect for getting them involved in these areas of study. Other reasons for using Unity Pro. It can help to prepare students to pursue careers in not only the gaming industry, of course, but also many other high-tech career fields, including things like architectural engineering, advertising, industrial design, programming. In fact, and I had mentioned this in one of our previous webinars, we know of a school or university that uses this for biomedical basically simulations that they do, showing how different devices are used in the human body that they construct. Okay, Unity Pro is widely used in industry, and this is the point we want to stress. The companies that are shaping our culture and our world are using Unity. There are 700,000 plus registered users, including the organizations you'll see here. Organizations like NASA, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Disney, Warner Brothers, and there are, of course, many, many more, 700,000 of them. Unity Pro 3 and Autodesk in the classroom. As Mark touched upon, using Unity Pro in combination with such programs as Autodesk 3ds Max or Maya can provide your school with the core tools needed to set up a video game design and development program. And because it's so easy to just basically take assets that you've created in these programs and drag and drop them into Unity, it makes a perfect fit. That said, Unity Pro also works well with other animation design programs. So Unity Pro will work with programs like Pixelogic ZBrush or Maxon Cinema 4D, just to name a few. Basically, any program that will allow you to save files in those formats that we list over there, FBX, DAE, 3DS, DXF, and OBJ, are programs that you can use with Unity Pro. Okay, here's the part that you want to hear. Unity Pro 3 secondary school product options. First off, we have both annual, 12-month of course, and perpetual with no expiration licensing options available. What we have available for middle and high schools are special bundles, and these are only available to secondary schools in both quantities of 10 and 25 seats. We do also have faculty commercial versions available, so if a faculty member needs to have basically a commercial license of Unity to do special projects on, we do have those available. And as well, we want to mention that we have specially priced student licenses available for home use. So if you do decide to use Unity in the classroom, we have very affordable pricing on student copies so they can follow along at home. Okay, specifically, the Unity Pro 3 Game Academy bundle. We'll say it again. This is a specially priced bundle that is available only to primary and secondary schools, K-12, and it's available exclusively from Studica. Now, each user license in these bundles includes Unity Pro 3, the Unity Team license, Unity Android Pro, and Unity iOS Pro. So you're basically getting the whole gamut of Unity products for each user in these bundles. The bundles offer a major price savings over any comparable higher education and commercial pricing options currently available. So much better pricing than you're going to get for any commercial purchase, much better pricing than if you were a college in ContactNet. Okay, here we go, the pricing options. First off, on the annual and the 12-month term pricing options, a 10-user classroom lab pack, including all those products I just mentioned, $998. For a 25-user classroom pack, once again, annual license, $24.94. Now, if we go up to perpetual licensing with no expiration, the pricing options are either a 10-user classroom pack, all 4 of those software titles from Unity, $24.94, or a 25-user classroom pack for $49.93. Now, just to give you an idea here, this is a really big savings over what you can get anywhere else. Now, a comparable, if we look at that 25-user classroom pack, if you were a college, which you understand, of course, we would offer educational pricing to colleges, the pricing that a college would get for that package would be $24,625. That would basically break down to $985 per user. But being a high school or middle school ordering this package, if you go with that 25 pack, your cost per user is only going to be $199.72. In fact, okay, if a college contacted us and they just wanted to order just Unity Pro alone without those other 3 software items, at a 25-user rate, that would be $295 per license. You're still saving over that, and you're getting so much more. The other thing that we have to add is with any Unity order that we're processing currently, the same as also with any Autodesk order that we process currently, we will toss in 1 month of free access to Digital Tutors. This is one of the sites that Mark mentioned that I was going to talk about. Basically what Digital Tutors is it's an online streaming website. It offers the world's largest online computer graphics training library, and it basically gives you new training tools every month. You also have access to project files and other learning tools. And it will help you not only master animation and graphic design and game development, but also other areas as well. And it not only works with Unity and Autodesk, which of course we've mentioned, but also Adobe. They've got Pixelogic training up there, Next Limit, Maxon, Luxology, and many other products as well. So that's a great benefit. So this all being said, if this sounds interesting to you, please ask us for a quote, and that goes for whether you're interested in Unity Pro, Autodesk, any of the Autodesk products, Pixelogic, Maxon, other products that we offer that address areas of STEM like Fisher Technic, Adobe, of course, National Instruments items, and hundreds of other products. It's easy enough to get a quote from us. All you have to go do is basically go to our website, which is studica.com. That's studica.com. And once you go to our webpage, you can go right along the left-hand side. There are a number of buttons for some of the major products that we carry, like Unity or Autodesk, where you can basically go right to those web pages, select the items you want, and just basically select how many you might want, fill in your contact info, and we can get you a quote very quickly. And on that note, we have a special offer for you as well. For attending this webinar today, for taking the time to be with us, we are offering you the Unity Pro High School Teacher Training Suite. This is per teacher for anyone who's attending this webinar. You can get one license of Unity Pro 3, one license of Unity Team License, one license of the Unity Android Pro, and one license of the Unity iOS Pro. A 1-year license of each, WinMac download, plus 1 month of access to the Digital Tutors website for a special webinar-only price of $299. And you'll see the link to that below there. So this all being said, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. And if you have any questions, if you'd like quotes, if you'd like any more information, you can either contact one of us directly, or if you did receive an email invitation to this webinar, you can contact the person who sent that to you. They would be your dedicated educational representative. But if not, feel free to contact either Mark or myself, and we will put you in touch with them, and we will be more than happy to answer any pricing or technical questions you may have.
I had somebody ask in the chat menu there already about system requirements, and I always forget to talk about that, but here they are on my webpage.
The conference is now in conversation
if you have specific
mode.
questions about
The conference is
what
now
hardware to
in
use,
presentation mode.
I would probably just email me. Lance posted my email address. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat here. If you guys have any questions like that. One thing I want to talk about, I'm a little ahead of schedule, so I'm just going to throw this in real quick. We keep talking about STEM, and last time I was in doing this webinar last week, somebody was telling me how their administrators are trying to shut down their game design curriculum because they want to focus more on STEM, and I told them that's ridiculous. I mean, STEM is game development, STEM is everywhere inside of that, because you got science. First of all, it's computer science, computer programming, and that's huge. We're in an ever increasingly digital world where computers are becoming larger and larger and better, and it's only going to become more of an abundance. So if you have people on the cutting edge of computer science, then they're going to be on the cutting edge of STEM already. Then you're talking about technology. Well, you're talking about computer hardware as well. And again, along the same lines, we're in an ever increasingly digital world. You got to have people understanding the hardware and how computers work. And you're talking about engineering, and some people see where that might be a stretch, but if you make a game, say a racing game, and you're designing your own cars for the game, you have to understand the physics of it as well, like the drag and the acceleration and everything. You're going to get a grasp on engineering just by creating your own arcade racing game. And then mathematics, if anybody's done any amount of programming or game programming, you know how much math is involved. People who do game programming are well versed in physics and calculus and trigonometry, all the mathematics that we need to keep pushing, humanity into the future. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit, since I thought that was crazy that they're wanting to cut a game design curriculum in favor of other STEM activities. But I'll go ahead and take some questions now. If you got any questions, feel free to use the chat menu and just go ahead and ask them. I don't really have any right now. Again, the system requirements are here on my screen. So if you're wondering about whether or not your lab will run the software, there you got it. So I don't have any questions yet. I can scroll up here and see if anybody asked anything. Nope. Okay, let's see. Viewer 70 says, how much RAM do you recommend? My RAM is about peaking right now, and I got 8 gigs, but that's also because I'm running like 5 programs that are all 3D intensive. So when I run Unity by itself, man, I only pull maybe 30 or 40% of my RAM usage. I'd recommend, at least if you're running a 32-bit system, of course you don't need anything more than 3 gigabytes because it won't use it. If you're running a 64-bit system, I would recommend at least 4 gigabytes. The price of RAM these days is so ridiculously cheap that I would just tell people to get 6 or 8 gigs, just so you got it, because that's going to help also with your 3D rendering. And a lot of times people who are programming games have tons of things open on their computer at the same time, so that extra RAM is really going to help you out. So hopefully that answers your question. Which programs do we need to start a class? Well, to start a class, outside of your basic computer, operating system and everything, all you really need is Unity 3D, which is what I got here. You don't necessarily need, the Android license or anything like that. As long as you have Unity 3D and you have a license for it, you can pretty much start doing everything because it comes with its own assets. So things like the first-person controller that I got here, you'll be able to drop in, and yeah, I know it looks kind of ugly, it's just a capsule, but if you have any modeling program, including free 3D modeling programs, you could use those to create your models. So really all you need is Unity 3D to do the game scripting and the handling of the game engine. I'm sure you can find modeling programs for free if you are on a tight budget. Other than that, I would recommend some sort of 3D modeling program outside of that, like Maya or Max. But again, it depends on your budget. So if you want to get started and just hop into game making, Unity 3D can do it, because like I was saying, this terrain and everything, the skybox, all this stuff here can be done within Unity. That's how I did this. And I know it doesn't look like much, but I didn't put weeks of time into this level here. If you spend an entire semester on it, I'm sure your students can come up with something really good looking. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes, Frank, I can do that. If you go to studica.com, this is where you will find the high school pricing. If you go to our Unity page over here, you will find all of our pricing listed here, and you can add them to your cart and check them out. That's basically, if you just go to www.studica.com, you'll see on the left side here a big old Unity button. You can just click on that and find what you need to find. I got some other questions here. Does Autodesk, Pixelogic, etc. come with all 4 modules? I keep getting switched around here. Oh, Lance already answered that. No, this is Unity Pro, not the free version. Autodesk, Pixelogic, etc. come with it. No, it doesn't. Unity is its own thing. The Autodesk software and Pixelogic, you would have to purchase those separately. Any curriculum materials, I don't know of any official teaching materials like a book or something that you could go from, but there's tons of online learning materials, and I'm sure there's books people have made, but I don't know if they're directly from Unity themselves. I'm sure if you go on like Amazon and look for Unity 3D training material, I'm sure you'll find it. I'm just not sure it's first party from Unity directly. So hopefully that answers your question. Unity does not include, okay. Can Unity animate your brush characters, for example, block cycle? Do you import a model that already has a skeleton? Everything I've read, and I haven't hopped into that too much, but from what I've read, people typically recommend to bake those animations within your 3D modeling program before you bring it into Unity. I've read that you can do it in Unity, but it's a lot easier to just do it within your 3D modeling program and then hop it into Unity. And yeah, you can import models that have skeletons, but again, all those animations you do, you're probably going to want to do those within your modeling program itself before you bring it into Unity. And that's all I've got here so far. Does anybody else have any questions? about anything. It doesn't have to be Unity specifically. It could be, you know, whatever. It could be Autodesk related too. And again, these are the system requirements. So, and RAM wise, just to touch on that again, you know, 32-bit system, you don't need more than 3 gigs. If you're running 64-bit, I'd recommend a minimum of 4, if not 6 or 8. And graphics cards is always a big question too. Any PCI Express 2.0 x16 graphics card with 512 megabytes will probably do fine. A gig is recommended, but 512 is kind of that's more affordable right now. So if you're on a tight budget, I would look at that. There's no preference for brand. NVIDIA and ATI are both good. I haven't read whether one runs better than the other, but I typically don't make specific recommendations. I just give you the information and let you decide that. So, and I don't have any other questions, so I'm kind of just rambling at this point. Oh, okay, hold on. Can we import .mov files? I actually am not too sure. I don't think so. You're talking about movie files, right? I don't know if I have any MOV files on my computer here. I don't know, let me look that up real quick. There's movie textures, video files are imported via Apple QuickTime. Support file types are what your QuickTime installation can play, usually MOV, MP, MPEG, MP4, AVI. Yeah, it looks like it can. I'm not sure what the functionality would be there, but according to this, it seems like a possibility. So it looks like there's a movie option within Unity. So yeah, you should be able to do that. For what reason you're doing it, I don't know, but I'm sure you can figure something out. Are there any other questions? Going once, going twice. Alright, well I guess with that we'll just leave this be, and again, I recorded this whole thing, so we will send everybody who registered a copy of this if you had to leave early or whatever. Well, you're not hearing this, but you'll all get a copy of it, and if you have any questions, just email me or Lance. You know, you got our email addresses, and we can help you out. So I hope this has been informational, and thank you. Goodbye.